Welcome to Newshour. Tensions over Iran's nuclear program have once again brought Tehran and Washington face to face, this time in Rome. On Friday, negotiators from both sides resumed talks aimed at breaking a long-standing deadlock. Iranian state media reported the meeting, warning that a breakthrough remains unlikely given what they described as mutually exclusive demands. At stake, the future of nuclear non-proliferation in the Middle East, the lifting of crushing sanctions, and the regional power balance. Well, President Donald Trump wants firm guarantees that Iran won't weaponize its enrichment capabilities, something Tehran says it has no intention of doing, yet refuses to give up its right to enrich uranium for civilian purposes. As the two sides meet, questions are mounting about the prospects for compromise. Nick Harper reports now from Washington, D.C.
Well, Guy, enrichment has fast become the main sticking point in these rounds of negotiations. US President Donald Trump says Iran's desire to continue enriching uranium must end. Quite simply, that has now become the US's red line, without which President Trump seems unwilling to offer Tehran sanctions relief. However, Iran's foreign minister on Friday wrote on social media no enrichment would mean we do not have a deal, and he told the US that it was time to decide. Iranian officials have suggested a regional nuclear consortium, and that would mean working alongside neighbours, including Saudi Arabia. They claim it would give their programme more transparency, with countries sharing technology. Now, the US has long feared Iran wants nuclear technology to attain nuclear weapons, though Tehran maintains its nuclear work is entirely for peaceful purposes. For decades, the US has had in place crushing sanctions against Iran. A successful resolution to all of this is really seen as a chance to give the country that opportunity, finally, to rebuild its battered economy, even opening up avenues of trade between Washington and Tehran. Iran has offered the US to invest in Iran's civilian nuclear program, allowing Washington more visibility on the program. Last week, Donald Trump suggested that a deal was close. However, there is still that possibility that talks could collapse if the sensitive issue of enrichment cannot be resolved. Nick Harper for A News in Washington, D.C.
Okay, let's stay in the US Capitol now and dig into this a bit further with Newsweek contributor Peter Roth. Peter, always good to have you on Newshour. Let's look at weapons versus enrichment then. The Iranians say they'll agree to no weapons, but can't agree to no enrichment. Where does this leave the US?
I think it leaves the US unsatisfied and pushing for no enrichment. Here's why. Weapons are easy. They're easy to assemble. You can even buy them. Enrichment is hard. It takes time. You can't rush nature. There's a process you have to go through. And the higher you want to enrich it, the longer you have to go. So the enrichment component is really the more important piece. Yes, you can buy enriched uranium, but we have safeguards, the IAEA has safeguards, even the Russians have safeguards to keep bad people from getting enriched uranium. That's the key here. And as long as enrichment at weapons grade level is on the table, there's not going to be a deal.
Donald Trump is clear, Peter. What about the American public, though? How is this playing out with them? What is the expectation from American citizens? Do you think most people would prefer a deal that allows some version of enrichment, or do they favour walking away instead of compromising?
I think most Americans, frankly, are in favor of the United States turning Iran into a parking lot. They don't have a lot of tolerance for the shenanigans that they've pulled since 1979. You know, they've been at war with America for almost, what is it now, 50 years. High intensity, low intensity, but they've been at war. They're funding Hamas, they're funding Hezbollah, they're funding the Houthis, who were shooting at U.S. shipping until we bombed them back into their place. And so I think most Americans just want them to go away. They don't really think about it very much. That's the level of engagement they have here. The idea of a nuclear Iran, an Iran bomb, would, I think, upset them greatly. And all the polling data showed that when Barack Obama led the European countries into the joint agreement with Iran, people were very unhappy. They were very unhappy when Obama and Biden sent billions in US dollars to Iran in exchange for hostages. The Iranian government is not very popular. I mean, there are a lot of Iranian people here, refugees from the revolution against the Shah, refugees after the mullahs took over, who have integrated themselves and become Americans and are a great part of our society. And I love the Iranian people, but they're stuck with a lousy government they can't get rid of. We don't like them. We don't trust them. We'd like them to go away, and we certainly don't want them to have the bomb.
And Peter, I just want to look at Israel in all of this. What sort of pressure is Israel exerting? Does Israel need to exert any pressure on the US?
No. I on this issue, no. I think on this issue with this president, I don't think Donald Trump needs Bibi Netanyahu or anybody else whispering in his ear to tell him that the Iranians are bad guys. Now, Iran has a lot to offer the United States. It has a lot to offer the world, culturally, scientifically, not just energy resources. The Iranian people have done much to enrich the course of global history, but they've got this rotten government that is killing them, wants to kill Israel, wants to kill us, wants to replace all of the moderate Arab leaders with carbon copies of what they have, and oppress everybody into this tight, theocratic, anti-woman, anti-plurality, anti-democratic, anti-human way of seeing the world. I don't know if I can be any more emphatic about this.
Very interesting. As always, Peter, thank you very much for your opinions and analysis.
Thanks,
great to see you. Thank you. Okay, let's go to Tehran now, where our correspondent Touraj Shiralilo is tracking developments. Touraj, good to have you with us. Remind us of Iran's red lines going into these talks, and where do you think compromise might be remotely possible versus things that would be a step too far?
Thank you for having me, Guy. As you said at the beginning of the program, Iran's red line is that it will stick to its enrichment program, uranium enrichment right under the NPT. So these talks cannot enforce Iran to go and accept anything under or beyond its internationally accepted norms and obligations under the Non-Proliferation Treaty. So Iran has been out and saying it loud and clear that it will not stop nuclear enrichment under any condition. And in one message that Iranian Foreign Minister Araqchi wrote today before going to the Rome talks, he said that basically in very few words that non-nuclear weapon means an agreement. That means we are ready for that. And non-enrichment or zero enrichment means no agreement. That categorically means that Iran does not want to compromise on this right. But if we are thinking of sort of scenarios, various scenarios that can be divided into 1 or 2 and 3 perhaps, and I think that both sides need to come to an agreement because they both need it. And this could be possibly Iran agreeing to a lower degree enrichment for some time, quite limited or defined time. That could be scenario one. And scenario two could be putting a timeline for that, saying that Iran will stop enriching the weapon grade enrichment, uranium enrichment, for some time, just to see what will be the outcome of the negotiations. So these one and two could be the most possible one to give the chance to both sides to come to an agreement, come out of the negotiations room. Of course, there is no one negotiations room in this situation. They are talking indirectly and claim victory. A good deal is a deal that both sides come out and are unhappy. So that could be a good deal if both sides say that it was a state of give and take. So I think at this time around, both sides will come out and say that, okay, we gave something and we were given something instead. That reports about a consortium and Iranian side getting ready to give its stockpile of enriched uranium to a third country, let's say Russia. Iran has not confirmed this idea so far. And when the US side said that we have suggested this to Iranian side back in Oman, Muscat, last week, Iran said that it has not received any suggestion in this regard. That could be a play, I mean, in the pipeline, but Iranian side has not commented on that. So I think Iran will use this stockpile of enriched uranium as a bargaining chip. For every percentage of that, I think Iranian side will start bargaining. For every, not say kilogram, but for every gram of it, Iran will start bargaining because when Trump withdrew from JCPOA, the nuclear agreement in 2015, and Iran found its way open to start enriching at this level, I think Iran was counting on using this stockpile of enriched uranium as a bargaining chip. So coming back to your question and quickly answering that, I think one compromise will be lowering the degree of enrichment, not to the between 3 to 5% enrichment, which is used for power production, but something between what Iran is producing now, 60%, and that level, 3 to 5%. And number two will be putting a time limit for that, perhaps for a couple of weeks or months, so that both sides can claim a victory as a sort of interim agreement. That I think would be the best or the most possible scenarios.
Yeah, it's very interesting what you said earlier about the success being defined to some degree by both sides being equally unhappy. Very interesting indeed. But if you look at this realistically, Touraj, you know, the White House, this current administration, not known for compromise. We've heard today that Iranian officials think a deal might be impossible. Are both sides serious, do you think, about reaching an agreement? Or has this become more about diplomatic positioning and optics?
I think so. On the Iranian side, both on the Iranian side and the US side, we know that there are antagonists. These talks have their own opponents. On the Iranian side, there was the more religious people or committed people who were disagreeing with the talks with the United States in principle. But after the supreme leader gave the green light for that, they withdrew. On the US side, there were so-called hawks, or I should say neocons, who were suggesting a tougher approach or perhaps a military invasion against Iran. Those people, neocons, are now put to the corner of the ring. They are no longer playing the main playground. But I think, first of all, both of them are facing this opposition inside, and they need to be responsive to these calls from their public opinion or from their political camps, let's say. But I believe both sides need it seriously. Number one, these sanctions, which are now under discussion, are U.S. unilaterally imposed sanctions. They are not UN sanctions. And these sanctions were imposed after Trump withdrew from the 2015 JCPOA agreement after 3 years, back in 2018, and imposed the strictest possible sanctions on Iran under the maximum pressure campaign policy. And under this, even medicine imports and academic relations have been cut off with Iran. So it's a very far-fetching, very, I should say, excessive sanctions. So Iran wants these sanctions to be removed. Number one, they are not endorsed by United Nations. They are U.S. specific sanctions. And on the other side, I think, look what has been happening on the U.S. side. Mr. Trump's tariffs plan or project has fallen apart. He had to withdraw. I mean, his peace process or his let's say truce and ceasefire process in Ukraine has almost fallen apart. But this time around, I think United States needs a victory, needs to say that I have achieved something, and it needs it, I mean dearly and badly, that we managed to reach to an agreement with Iran. And these reports, I mean, a couple of days ago, CNN report that it was quoted as citing intelligence reports of the U.S. Intelligence agencies that Israel is getting ready to attack Iran if Iran-U.S. talks do not come to any conclusive results. I think the United States doesn't want, or Trump's administration doesn't want a war in the region if Israel is going to have any invasion of Iran and Iran retaliating, and once again, a retaliation to retaliation. And this cycle of retaliations is not what Mr. Trump wants. Just last week, he returned from his tour of the Persian Gulf, and with the large amounts of investment promises and pledges. And he doesn't want to see that these investment plans will be going into thin air if there would be any military confrontation in the region. That's why I think both sides needs an agreement, but with different incentives and different intentions.
Very interesting. Thanks, as always, for your excellent analysis, Touraj, for us there in Tehran. Well, that does bring us to the end of this edition of Newshour. As Iran and the US test the waters then in Rome, the path forward remains clouded by suspicion, strategy, and years of mistrust. Can diplomacy prevail, or is this just another round of theatre on the international stage? Well, as always, we'll be watching. From all of us here at A News, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Goodbye for now.